Okay. Today we have another coding lab. This time we're not doing observable. Even though you could use observable for prototyping with D3. Actually, D3 is owned by observable. This person, Mike Bostock, actually created D3 and he also created observable. So obviously you could, but D3 is a JavaScript library for which you can create data visualizations, with which you can create data visualizations. It is different from Vega Light because it's a bit more low level, meaning you have more access to just how the visualization is created. Essentially, D3 is a library that enables you to link data with HTML elements. You can use it to create any sort of HTML element. And it has a lot of nice functions to help you map data to HTML elements. But what it's really good for and used in not more than 90% of the time is to create SVG, which is the reason why we practiced with SVG in the last assignment. So let's just look at some examples, just so you know. You can go to Vega Light examples and see what level of fidelity you can achieve with Vega Light. But with D3, you can create things like this. Like you can just do all sorts of interactions. You can jump around. This is all SVG, but like you're implementing a lot of different interactions, right? So you can create a super sophisticated chart where it's like hierarchical data and it shows you what you're looking at. Some of these are harder to create with Vega Light. Vega Light is more designed with that grammar of sort of graphics that we talked about, right? The idea of going from data to marks and to encoding channels. There's a lot of examples here, and you could look at it. You could create network diagrams, move them around. So if you strive for creating these fun, like super interactive visualizations, that's where you want to go. And I'll be showing you some examples. In general, you can animate and you can make interaction in a super fine-tuned way. But also you can also create these sort of explorable explanations where using SVG, you can update your view and explain things to people. Like these are all generated with SVG. So you can just show, like animate creation of a line, or you can smooth it out. So this is like where you can just go super crazy and creative with your visualizations. I would like for you to learn both Vega Light and SVG and D3 because you can mix and match. I always use either or for many other cases. And if you know these two, probably in many cases, you'll just use Vega Light. And then when you want to get super creative and create something super like customized, then you will go with D3. But today, open up your Visual Studio Codes and let's just learn what D3 does. Please send a thumbs up if you can read the code, okay? And it's all good, perfect. Yes, I can make it larger. Is it better now? Cool. And then it was Alt and Z. Okay. All right. So we are starting to use D3, the first thing I want you to do is to create an index.html and then do shift and exclamation point and then create that empty HTML file. And then just like last time, create a script tag. The type of your script tag would be a module. And then the source for it would be whatever file you're creating. For me, it's viz.js. This is a newer type of using JavaScript. It works in most modern browsers. It should be fine. But it allows you to import JavaScript libraries within JavaScript, as opposed to including it in the head of your HTML. For people who've done this, you know what I mean. It just makes it a bit simpler to handle stuff. So script tag, module, follow along. The sample code, a bunch of D3 sample codes are on the GitHub of the course. So you can see most of these codes, but I highly suggest that you follow along. And I can slow down. We'll get to a certain amount and then we'll send updates afterwards. But the sample code exists on a lot of D3 sample code exists in the course GitHub. Okay, so I'm just going to delete this. Here's what I want you to do. I'm going to send this import. Actually, I'm not going to send this import. Just go to the D3JS website, right? And then go to Get Started and find it yourself. This is how you want to import. You will copy this line and paste it on top of your viz.js. And I have it here. But just get in the habit of getting stuff from your... Okay? What this line does is that basically it creates an object called D3 that enables you to do stuff like D3.something. It's basically all the methods that D3 has. It helps you create SVG, do stuff, all the good stuff. Cool, find the GitHub link. Why don't you guys just code along? It should be simple. Let me just send this to...
I'm gonna send it.
Yeah. Okay. So get this line. I'm just gonna send this to, hopefully you've gotten it from the website, but here it is as an import. Paste it on top of your JS file. And then create a function call it makeViz. You don't have to do this, but this is a pattern I like to use because it makes things cleaner. Under this function, you will create your visualization code and you'll just call this function here. Okay? So just to make sure that you have D3, just do a console.log and then go to your inspect. We've done this before, and see that this module is printed. I just want you to see it. Line 4. So you have it. If that works, then you can start doing things. So now, inside of the body of your HTML, I'm just gonna create a div and give it an ID, call it viz container. I'm gonna use an uppercase C. If you don't, remember that you didn't, but I'm using camel case. Okay, we're gonna create the SVG, the one that we did by hand, using D3. That's the first thing that we want to do. Okay, creating SVG is very simple. You create a new variable, call it SVG. And then you've already done it with JavaScript, but with D3, you can create an SVG. Okay? And then the SVG needs a width. The way you set attributes for an element is through the attr method. And then you say the width should be 800. And then you can do another, and then you can set the height. The height maybe is 600. That's it. Okay. And now you can go this container dot append SVG node. I'm going to show you two ways of creating SVGs, but that's the first. So I'm just going to see if this is created. See, there is an SVG here. We didn't have it in our HTML, but now we have created an SVG and inserted it inside of this container. The point is that the reason I didn't have to select this is that when you use an ID, the DOM object actually creates an object with the name of that ID, and then you can just use it. But I could also just create a variable and say document.query selector, etc., etc. So we have our SVG. Okay, I'm going to comment this. I'm just going to show you another way of doing this, achieving the same thing. You can say const SVG equals d3.select with a, this is very much similar to your DOM selector. So you're now selecting the div with the ID of this container, and then you're going to go append SVG. So you're adding an SVG to that, and then you do the same thing. I'm just going to copy, and then you add the attributes. If I come here, I would have achieved the exact same results. There's a slight difference here, is that here you are creating the node, and then you're adding it to the thing, to the viz container. This way, you're selecting the viz container, and then adding the SVG to it. Both works in similar veins. The reason I'm showing you this is that you might see this example in observable. This is how observable does things, and you might want to use a lot of existing examples. Thumbs up if you've done this and you can see the SVG. No thumbs up. You're not here yet? Should I wait? Not yet. We're waiting. I want to wait a little bit. Yes, you can see the index page. We have a div called viz container, and then a script tag, type module, viz.js. Perfect. Okay. So we can continue now. Now we have this variable called SVG. The idea with D3 for now is that you can, just like with JavaScript, with vanilla JavaScript, you can do things. You can add another SVG inside of it. So I can just go SVG dot append, and then I can make it a circle. Okay. And then I can just go, okay, the circle should be of radius of 25, and then the x coordinates of it should be, I don't know, 250, and then the y coordinates of it should be 500. Okay? And then you can maybe say, I think it's an attribute, fill should be, I don't know, here. Okay? So we've now learned that we can take an SVG, append a circle, set the radius, set the x, set the y, and do the fill. So normally, someone, I remember, asked how to use for loops and stuff. This is how you write a for loop. With D3, you don't need to use a for loop, but this is how, essentially, you're gonna create a for loop like this. You're gonna say, there's an I that starts from 0, and then you wanna, see, I don't even remember how to do a for loop. They were right. I plus.
Yeah, start, condition,
Right?
loop. Yeah, I think.
Then we can two programmers are like, yeah.
I never memorized syntax.
I gave shade to the people asking, yes, the for loop is correct. And whoever wanted to know more about it actually were right, because we don't even remember. Anyways, essentially, you're saying there's a starting point, there's an ending point, and there's a sequence. There's how many steps should you take to reach this condition. So we've created this variable I, and inside of this, we have access to it. And this loop occurs the number of times that it needs to until it reaches this condition X, and then it keeps increasing the I. Okay? Usually the way you create an SVG, you could do this, right? You could say, okay, every time create a circle for me. And then maybe you can set the Y, I don't know, based on I, let's say for every, we can add 100 pixels to it, right? So you can say 100 plus I times 100. So it starts from the 100, and then it will be 0, so it will be 100, then there will be 0 plus 100, 0 plus 200, 0 plus 300, and then let's just make this 5, right? So now you have this number of circles. I mean, if we make it 7, you will have more than the space is needed, so you can space them out every 50. Okay? But this is too much, right? You don't want to. Why would we use D3 to do this? Because what D3 is good for, even though it does all of those things that JavaScript does for you. Now, I'm deleting this. I'm going to do this again. Usually, this is what you have. When you want to create a data visualization, you have some sort of data set. Let's say you have 100, 200, 500, 550. Let's say this is, actually, let's just say heights. 180, 160, 185, 155, 168. Let's assume that these are the heights of people. 180, 160. This is a good representation. I think so. Okay? So we have 5 heights and we want to visualize them with circles. What do we do? Hope I remember. I'm not sure, but let's see if my memory and the cheat code that I have here helps. So this is how we do things. We'll repeat that thing. You can go SVG, and I'm going to explain to you what this means. You're telling D3 to take the SVG and select all of the circles that are within it. You might ask, okay, there is no circles here. That's fine. You won't find anything. The next function that you call, you're passing the data to it, right? And then you say join circle. These 3 magic lines are creating for loops within itself, but adding for each of the items within this data array. If there was a circle, good, it already exists. So if there was 2 circles, when you do the join, it will create 3 more circles for you. If there's none, it will create 5. Okay? I want you to look at it a little bit and just consider this pattern is almost universal in D3. You always do this when you want to create visualizations. In vast majority of cases, you will not have any elements, so it will just create a bunch of circles for you. So this is called binding the data to SVG elements, okay? Now, this is where the fun happens. I don't know if it's fun. One piece is more fun for me than this, but again, in the context of the course, I guess it is fun enough, right? Now, when we do the CX, this after binding the data and creating, this is running for all of those elements that are created. Okay? So you can do something like this. You can use a function, and then the X should be, I need to look at the documentation here actually, because I don't remember. Let's just go and look at the scatter plot. It happens to all of us. I'm gonna control myself and not ask ChatGPT because that's embarrassing. Not really embarrassing, but it's better to do this. We'll just figure it out. I think this function, D3 will pass the index of this and the actual item. So let's just see if this is correct. So it's the other way around, I guess. Yeah. So this is how you will write it. The first thing that you put in the function is the data item. The second is the index. Okay? That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. I should have known this. Anyways, so now we can do the same thing. We can say for the X, you want the X to go to the right. So you can say return I times 50. Okay, now we gotta do a radius. You see that? And then maybe we start from 50. Okay. And then maybe for now, we just do, and just use 250 as the CY. So we've created 5 circles. Let's just space them out a little bit more. So we have 5 circles. So you might ask, what else is interesting? Why don't we make the size of the circle something? We can go again, B, I, and then just comment for yourself, D is the actual data element in the array, and I is the index, okay? And then you can set the radius. This is based on pixels, so you don't want to do 180 pixels, and maybe we do return D, I don't know, divided by 10. Or maybe divided by 5. So you're already making visualizations. How are you doing? I'm going to wait a little bit for you to code along. I'm going to give you a few seconds. So this is a good stopping point because we're going to have another, we're going to have a new thing for you to learn. So consume this, ask questions if you have. But instead of a for loop, we have now used a data array to create this. Maybe if we create a shorter person, see, it just adds. Maybe if we create another, it just adds another circle. So that's why this is fun. I don't know if it's fun for you or not, but it's fun. But I wish I was watching One Piece right now. You can just create visualizations that respond to the data set. I hope that you can imagine at the end, you will be able to read a CSV, map it to these SVGs, and do all sorts of crazy things. Why shouldn't we just stop? We can just go circle. We can just also change the fill and just go. I'm just having fun until you guys tell me you're good. So you can just say if the person, if D is less than 150, 160, okay? This should be in parentheses. Should just go return green. This green should be in, and then you can just go return gray. So this is to me, this is very intuitive because you can just use conditionals to set colors for your items. So you can easily highlight anything that you want. How we doing? Where we at? Are you all seeing them circles? Thumbs up. It's weird. The thumbs up that show up for me are like this. No thumbs. I don't know why. Some of them have like, okay. All right. I need to teach you something. So look at, pay attention. So what's the problem here? This is not right. You don't want to go, oh, just randomly divide the data by 5. What's the point of using a library if it just does that? What's the whole point? You can just write a for loop. D3 has a few really useful functions called scales, right? Scales. I don't know. Send these grades related questions after the lecture. We'll figure it out tonight. Okay? Okay. So what are scales? One of the main things that we want to do, if you remember, is to map from data. Okay? What we've done here is we've decided a mark. So this is our mark. But where's our encoding? When you want to do an encoding, essentially, you are going from a data to some, it's not beta, it's data. So from data to something in the screen space. So this is when you decide, okay, I want to map it to position. Then you go, the smallest value goes to the left and the largest value goes to the right. So if our data, let's say the heights data goes from 130, 190, okay? You want to take these, any number that's between these, and translate it to 0 to the width of your screen. This translation is called a scale function, right? This is the domain of the function, and this is the range. The input is the domain, and the range is the output. So if you now input the number 130 to this function, it'll give you 0. If you do something in between, it'll do something in between this range. This is what you need, because you don't want to do this, right? So for X, you could get the index and then map it to the screen width. Okay, and you can do the same thing for radius. So let's try this. What do we need for creating the scale? We need to know the minimum and the maximum of our input data. Okay, I'm just gonna get a few more. Okay, and then you can just get the range, or like the minimum, d3.min data, and you can get maximum d3.max data. So let's see if we've got it. Okay, this is good. 100 and 195. Where did we do 100? So let's just make this 120. See, our minimum is now 120. Let's make it 130. Our minimum is now 130. Okay, so you can get the minimum and the maximum. You can also just get data range and say d3.range data. It gives you both as an array. Oh, extent, data extent, sorry, my memory. And then you want to print, and this gets you the same as an array. So the first item of this array is the minimum, and the second item is the maximum. So we're just going to use the extent, because that's one fewer line of code. So what do we do with this extent? We go const, I think const is more appropriate here, and then you can go const scale. Scales sometimes change, so you can just go linear. We're making a linear scale because this linearly map the input to the output. Okay, D3 scale linear. Okay, it creates it. You set the domain first. What is the domain? The minimum and maximum of your data. You already have this. So you just put data extent here. And then you go range. And then the range maybe is from 0 to the width of your screen. But we don't have a width. So instead of directly setting the width, we can create variables here. We can just go const width equals 800, const height equals 600. And then you use that to set the width and height of your SVG. So now let's try console.log scale linear. Now let's just go 140. It should give us a number. So we give it a number in the input range, and it outputs a number in the output range. Input domain, output range. We want to map from data to screen. Now we have our function. Okay? Actually, let's call this radius scale, not scale linear. We don't want to use the same name as the function, pardon me. Okay, so we have radius scale, and then do this. Okay, this should not be a radius scale, this should be x scale. My brain is right now very tired.
I think you're fine.
Yeah, let's take a break. Take 5 minutes. All right, I'll be back if they have any questions.
I could have some mistyping. You don't actually have to copy paste the code. It's just for representation, and it's just for like practice. There are already some examples on the GitHub link that I put for you here in the Zoom chat, and I will post the link on Discord as well. And Therese had asked, sorry if I missed, what is the meaning of the 140? It's the scale, yeah?
It's just the 140 is just an input. I was just demonstrating that you could input any number in this range, in this domain, and it will give you the output that you've defined. I'm going to write a comment here. d3.scaleLinear creates a function that usually gets a number in the input domain and outputs a number in the output range. For example, if domain is height and range is horizontal screen, then it will getting 140 will get you a number in pixels. This is what you define. So we get the input as data extent as the a number between the minimum and maximum of our data, and the output would be in screen space. Okay, so now this is using this is very simple. It's scale, and you just pass the height to it. You ready? This is the minimum height. This is the maximum height. And these are all the in-between ones. Let's get rid of the fill. Let's just make radius 5 for now, because we are working towards creating a scatter plot. So what if you want to create some margin so it doesn't touch the width? So you can just go const margins equals, you create an object, you can just go left equals 50, right equals 50. For now, we can just use left and right. Okay? Now we can tell D3 to not start from 0, but start from margins.left and width minus margins.right. So you're giving some padding to your scatter plot. Did you copy and paste the code to Discord?
I didn't copy and paste the code, but I have put the link for them.
Which part are, it should tell you in the error, instead of just go here and then you should see some hint on where your mistyping is. It's gonna tell you. Okay. So let's quickly just change this to heights, because we now want to get more descriptive, right? Actually, let's call it data and make it 2 numbers, because we want to create a scatter plot. So I'm just going to manually just add, okay? What's a fun attribute, random attribute to visualize?
Attribute of
Height, we have height versus what? Wealth in $1 million.
Yeah.
This is wealth in $1 million.
No, we can technically count their BM levels.
So 10, $5 million, $1 million. I hope that everyone is a millionaire here. 15, 12. We don't have billionaires, we're around tens of millions. 6, 8, 10, 1. There's a poor person in this class because they have only 1 million.
Please add a .002.
No, that'll mess up with the scale.
Oh, okay.
I can't do that.
Okay.
I can't do that. 4. Maybe we got like a wealthy, another wealthy, and maybe we got like a 20. All right, so it messed up our code a little bit, because now we have a 2-dimensional data set. The first item in the data set is height. The second item is the millions of dollars. Okay, so now you can't do this. You have to go data, and then you have to tell it you want to create the height extent. Okay, so you use a little bit of JavaScript. You're going to tell it that for the height, return the 0, the first item of your element, and then wealth extent equals d3.extent data d, and then return d1. So we're returning the minimum and maximum of height and minimum and maximum of wealth. So we want to map the the height to horizontal position, which becomes the x scale. So we pass height extent, and then we create our let y scale d3 dot scale linear. The domain is wealth extent, and then the range, this is the weird part, okay? In SVG, if you remember, white goes from top to bottom. So you reverse it. You go height to 0 instead of 0 to height, because you want the lowest number to be at 0, the lowest number to be at height, and the highest number to be at 0. We can also just create top 50 and bottom 50 margins as well. So we can go, I hope I'm right. My brain is not, yeah, it's shutting down. I am very tired.
Another 5 minutes.
Yeah, we'll be done soon. Okay, so now that we have created our Y scale, here we have to pass the first item of the list to the X. We see the same thing, and then we'll just do VI return Y scale D1. Boom, scatterplot. We have 5 more minutes. So you might ask, okay, so why is this even interesting? There's no way to read this chart. D3 helps you with that as well. You can simply and very easily create a axis. And I'm going to show you how. I'm cheating because I'm reading this done. Okay, so the way you create an axis is like this. You go SVG dot, you create a group, okay, and then you call within that group D3. This is a very repeatable pattern, so if you just memorize it or look it up, it's all good. You want to create an axis bottom with the X scale, and then you want to move that axis bottom to, using transform, to the bottom of the page. And you do that by doing this. I'm just going to copy and paste. Height minus margins done. I guess this should be minus, maybe. Should be plus. Let me just make sure that I've done things correctly. Yeah, it looks fine. Okay, so it creates the values for you to see, and then you can do the same thing with axis left. And I don't think axis left needs any transform. I think it does need a transform. It needs to move 0 and then margins dot left. We have our scatter plot.
Can we make the plot in a way that the dots don't fall right on the axis?
Yeah, we have the example that does that. It's enough for today.
Okay.
But this is the very, I think, frustrating process of creating a scatter plot that Vega Light does in like 5 lines of code. However, you'll see that when you get to this point, then the scatter plot is your oyster. Why? Is that
I think it's a
I don't know. My English breaks sometimes. But
it's cool. It becomes.
But you can do a lot of things, and we'll see together in the next lab and some examples coming to you later. But you'll have access to these codes in the GitHub. So
yeah,
hopefully,
I put it under the resources topic in our
list. I hope I didn't make any mistakes. These margins and stuff probably are.
We're gonna fix them next week if you haven't done any.
Yeah.
I think they're right.
So take my teachings today with a grain of salt, especially on YouTube.